Hello everybody, welcome back on iKeysRacing community channel. Still Marco from Monza, but virtually from Le Mans. A sort of second episode for this particular theme started a few days ago with the first successful decade for the 24 hours of Le Mans and all the involvement about technology, manufacturers and so on. We will try to approach the second decade that will be more or less a split between this one and the real 4 hours driving, on which I will challenge myself still with the around the world in 24 hours thing. Qualifying under the hood in some way, so we can maybe jump with the accelerated time, go back a second in the menu, have a specific definition of each car presented as a sort of selection for the second decade. It's not easy to build up a specific era for sports car, differently from Formula 1, always I would say defined by the technology, by the change of rules. For the world of sports car and prototypes and endurance things, there are more shades. It's not always black or white. So, before the night will approach the ending of the qualification, thank you for watching the previous video. Welcome back, and let's go to see what we are going to race today. Even if you have maybe understood from the cover, it was something tasting German. See you there. And so here we are, taking the opportunity to talk about a sort of second decade from 65 to 75-ish, where we are going to see a new version of Le Mans with the famous introduction of the last chicane, the nowadays Ford chicane, before the start-finish line. And inside we will see some cars that we are not going to find within the theme around the world in 24 hours, where I would like to continue to race with the 4 hours format we have seen in the season number 1, if you followed it. Here we will see all those prototypes coming in the second part of the 60s, like the Ferrari 330, P3, 4 or specific P4, the 412P, another incredible monster, or as well the final evolution of the Ford GT40, the Mark IV, as well as a lot of Porsches, the 907 long tail, 908 long tail, and the 917 long tail, all built specific to harness the difficulties of Le Mans. You may find people that will say, I don't know, Mulsanne Straight was not interesting for racing, blah 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 blah, was just pure flat out. In reality, what the king of Mulsanne forced manufacturers to do was move from very high powerful sport prototypes of the second mid part of the 70s, was force manufacturers to build something like this that was already pure raw power, high glitters engines, displacement of V12, V8, that had a bit of research aerodynamically speaking, but they were still anyway models coming from a sort of raw technology evolved at the maximum. So from a hardware point of view, engines, brakes, devices, it was all already at the top for that period. The same can be said for the Ford, with the GT40 arrived to the fourth and final evolution. It was still anyway a sort of road car built on purpose a few years before to beat Ferrari, to win at Le Mans, at Daytona, at Sebring, but still with links like was for Ferrari with the road car environment. Porsche, moving from the low liters category, adapted their models more and more to become a pure aerodynamic study to define how a car behaved at high speed. And we have to consider that between the 907, 908 and 917 there were not computers building a car. It was just a pencil, paper and maybe a technigraph design, and then go on track to verify if things were good or not. Yes, there was the wind tunnel, the first experiments for sure, but what was in the old way, like well expressed in the movie Ford versus Ferrari or Le Mans 66, attaching stripes at the body to see where the air was moving. Yes, you could do it like Ford did on track, or you could do it on a wind tunnel like maybe Porsche started to do. And was this the main theme between all the prototypes, if we can call them so, like these, to not prototypes but Grand Tourers specific built for racing, evolved almost into prototypes, but was Porsche that, with all the studies, all the efforts, all the challenges, won also in the low classes, then arrived to the 917 as a sort of final monster, purpose built just for winning Le Mans. So the prestige of Le Mans was also behind this, forcing a manufacturer to invent something new to get to the point to win the most important endurance race in the world. Nothing less for Daytona, for Sebring, but really for European manufacturers and also for American manufacturers. At the end, in some way, the definitive solution was winning at Le Mans, did by Ford in the mid-60s, and basically dominating 4 times in a row, 66, 7, 8 and 9. Then from the 70s, here we are, is Porsche that started to harness all the challenges imposed by Le Mans as a racetrack. Today we will drive this model that, especially in the 1969 edition, was at that point the most favorite car, thanks to the studies coming from the previous years with the model 907, 908 and so on. The 917 would have been the car to beat in the 70s, sure, but despite this, in 69 there was still a Ford in the final evolution, considered obsolete but demonstrated to be not so obsolete, at least from one point in particular. The car was not maybe powerful enough and aerodynamically refined enough like the 917 long tail, but had enough power, yes, had enough reliability, yes, and all the previous 64, 65 defeats, delusions, where Ferrari won anyway, confirming to be the first to be beaten. And nonetheless, if we go back to the prototypes, almost prototypes, or first wave of prototypes of Ferrari, won also at Daytona, Sebring and so on. So Ford defeated Ferrari. But once Ferrari left the involvement into endurance world because purchased by Fiat and forced to concentrate on Formula One specific categories, it was Porsche that would have become the new Ford, beating the new Ferrari. That was at that point Ford. But in 69, believe it or not, despite not having the quickest car, maybe Ford had the most reliable, maybe yes, maybe didn't suffer of brakes problem like at the beginning, but at least applied very well at the maximum level the quick technology to change very fast disc brakes and pads. That problem was now faced by Porsche, that up to the moment where they had, let me say, low powered second class cars, they were not developing so much strongness also on brakes. When the 917 arrived, the first thing that suffered, because maybe the technology was not so developed like today, was about brakes, because the new power, the new speeds developed were too much to be managed properly with the brakes technology back then available. And if Ford succeeded, especially in the 60s, on harnessing the problem of the technology limited of disc brakes and pads, Porsche, at least up to the 69, did have still that problem that faced 5 years before Ford. So especially that 69 edition, at least in my memory, was and is one of the most memorable, thinking about Jackie X with the Ford GT40 starting calmly from the back for a formal protest on safety measures related to the LeMans start, with drivers starting from the opposite side of the track, jumping on cars, starting the car in a rush without fastening belts, without maybe closing properly even the side door, and so on. Well, that 69 edition was maybe the sunset for the Ford Mark IV, the GT40 Mark IV, yes, was the dawn for the Porsche 917 that would have dominated in a couple of years. But in between there was this particular edition where someone starting last, to demonstrate that even starting last in a 24 hours you could win, Jackie X, Monsieur LeMans, let all the drivers go, fastened very well and properly his seatbelt, closed very well the door, and not only, just walked from the other side of the track in the start-finish line to walk calmly to get into the car, and then started last. We will do the same, but we will do the same driving the Porsche 917 to see if the most available power in this mod, I will do at least a decent possible result today. Leaving prototypes, and sorry for the long introduction, but historically was absolutely a change of history for endurance world, from low classes to high classes. Then between the world of now real Grand Tourers, we have seen for sure in the 60s Chevrolet Corvette arriving to try to win with its models the GT class, and did it with a first series at the end of the 50s, and then tried more properly with the new versions that you can find on GTLegends originally of the third series, that to me is maybe the most beautiful one from a historic point of view. Big V8 engines, high glitters, a lot of power, but also a lot of weight and a poor handling, so nothing really comparable to modern European cars. That was the case also of Ferrari, that starting to fade a bit in the prototype categories until the 70s, had anyway great GT cars also for privateers to be prepared and raced properly. As well, some privateers still had the Ford GT40 available, and we will leave at least one GT40, the original model, if you can say so, of the mid-60s available, to battle together with the first tentatives of Porsche with the 906 low liters engines, but a very light chassis, and the start of the study, technically speaking, that then did bring the 907, the 908 and the 917 that we are going to use. Nonetheless, in the GT class, we have seen also from the end of the 60s and the beginning of the 70s the affirmation of Porsche also with GT cars category, because maybe not the 914 but the 911 here in a 74, I suppose 75, if not 76 edition version, had the last word on how to win with a GT car. But also for the end of the 60s, I cannot forget the Renault Alpine, that's seen here some successes not only in the Rally Championship, despite running a light car with just a 1.3 liters engine, but also some old monsters from the Shelby world, like was this Shelby Mustang, prepared by someone that was absolutely capable to prepare racing car, Carroll Shelby. So, with a quick, very quick view, finally arriving to the shy over 900 kilograms and almost 500 horsepower for 11 kilowatts of the 917 long tail, or Langheck, something similar in German. Sorry for my bad German. Nothing more than Mulsanne straight was absolutely the mandatory field to study how to build, mainly an airplane, vice versa. And remember that up to 68, 69, even Formula 1 was not so evolved with wings, with the usage of wings, but was the Chaparral at the end of the 60s harnessing first than others the usage of wings. Again, for endurance races, for high-speed cornering and so on, and for the combination also of the mechanical side on low corners with the aerodynamic side at high speed. Something that someone maybe will say, oh, was useless to run at Mulsanne, it's nothing special with or without chicane. No, back then that was the study that transformed also racing cars into airplanes built vice versa. Because the logo of the iKeysRacing community is the yellow one, if you don't mind, I would go for the number 14, yellow pictured here. So let's go on. As well, like the first appointment with the amateur, my usual level for GTLegends. One day I promise I will be quicker than this, but so far nothing more than this. So yes, 20 minutes of qualifying. Let's see what will happen apart from being crashed, I suppose, in the pit, because we will have a LeMans start here in the way that Jackie Hicks rightly hated for the last time, and we will see also, compared to the previous episode, lap times running easily under 4 minutes, especially with the most powerful cars. So this was the first, I would say, development, improvement and so on had with the arrival of specific prototypes and more powerful engines, the study of aerodynamics. I mean, from 4 minutes and 15 seconds, 20 seconds as an average lap time in the 50s, down to the end of the 60s, the aerodynamic played a major role thanks to LeMans, thanks to the long straight of Mulsanne, and thanks to what LeMans as a racetrack, as a concept, is. So, without the aim to simulate anything more than what is offered by a virtual game, we have a Porsche 917 long tail clinching 3 minutes 40 seconds per lap, then the Ford Mark IV, build the GT40 under the hood in some way, the Ferrari 330 P4, 3 minutes 45, 46, another Ford, another Ferrari 412, another Porsche, and so on, up to the slowest car, that will be over 5 minutes, a Shelby Ford Mustang Shelby GT350, the Renault Alpines, the old model, the first, the second series of the Ford GT40, 4 minutes 36, a GT Ferrari 365, Corvette, Porsche 911, and as you can see, after the GTs, there is the start of the low liters, tiny liters, Porsche 907, 908, strangely a Ferrari 330, despite having a 12 cylinders high capacity engine in between, but it will depend also on drivers and so on. So, with our equal model 917 LH Langheck Porsche, we will start from the last position in the field, in the grid, on the field. Like did JTX, we will leave all the others go, 5 laps, 24 hours simulated in 24 minutes, and hopefully this time we will maybe have a better Marco at the wheel instead of what I did with the Ferrari 250 GTO. That was not mandatory a winning car, but I could have been better than P20. But before that, okay, car setup loaded. We will cover 8 laps out of 5. We cannot touch the rev limit. We can touch the final gearing for this car. We will have speeds in excess of 330 km per hour. The rest is well managed in some way in this particular arrangement, and I think will be enough to enjoy 24 minutes of pure flat-out race. The racetrack itself will be a bit different just for one particular thing, that will be the Ford chicane placed before the start-finish line, and in that particular edition nothing more than brake zones were the Achilles heel for Porsche, that despite having the quickest car on straights, the better car almost from a fuel consumption point of view, was absolutely hammered by a low level of brake performances and lost the possibility to win its first overall win, not only in class, at Le Mans. And so welcome on board on the Porsche 917 69 edition long tail. As Jackie X did, we will leave all the others go, because in the meantime we are fastening our seatbelt, closing properly the door. There were also crashes and accidents for doors not firmly closed at the start of the race, and especially in that edition of Le Mans 69, when Jack X, for a formal protest, decided to walk from the other side of the start-finish line straight into the car, walking slowly while the others were running as usual. Here there are already some crashes. Come on. And so Jackie X with his old Ford GT40 Mark IV decided to walk, leave all the others, start with the belts unfastened, doors not maybe possibly closed in the best way. At the first lap of that edition, unluckily, Mr. Wolfie died on a Porsche 917 because he crashed without having seatbelt fastened in the right way. A privateer. Still have headlights, yes. Touch with Boucher Linge. Herman Siffert didn't finish. I hope I was not the reason behind the touch. Indianapolis 1 and 2. Cold tires, remember, Marco? Arnage very slow indeed. First gear, the slowest point of Le Mans. Passing the Ferrari of Chris Amon and Nino Vaccarella was dangerous indeed. Now behind Andretti and Lucien Bianchi, the Ford Mark IV. Maison Blanche, they are quite slow. We pass Merpash Stommelen. Ford chicane. We stay internally because sometimes AI behaves here very strangely. They tend to clash each other. They slow down dramatically, unluckily, sometimes, some laps. Bad racing line under the Dunlop curve, in the Dunlop curve and under the Dunlop bridge. P3 in one lap. Okay, here will be the occasion to have a look to the tachometer to see the top speed of this monster. A flat D12 engine already capable of 500 brake horsepower. Something crazy. We take the slipstream of Parks and Scarfiotti Ferrari, looking for Richard Atwood and Vic Elford, original winners of the 1970 edition of Le Mans, the 917 model. Full gear in fifth, over 360 kilometers per hour, like it was originally when the Porsche had the problem to slow down, especially here for the Mulsanne corner. So they had to start very early. The braking area, braking zone action, and then again flat out. So the aerodynamic studies were yes, made on other tracks, were made in the first wind tunnels, taking advantage of aeronautic discoveries. Mainly was the layout of Le Mans, offering the slowest corner here at Arnage, first gear, 40-50 kilometers per hour, not more. And then quick corners, almost flat out. Almost lost the car at Maison Blanche. At the back of Atwood, Elford. For the chicane, trying to not spin. What are they doing? I've seen them in the last moment. Did they went to the pit? Yes, maybe yes. No, they just stopped for a possible bug or something stupid there. And they are back. 3 seconds. So at least we are leading after just 3 laps. Obviously, everything is not a pure simulation. So I was watching outside the window because there is a thunderstorm arriving, so I hope to finish the race before the thunderstorm. And from now onwards, like we did before, I will shut up. In the night of LeMans. in the 70s, le ragazzoni said the Mulsanne King at 400 kilometers per hour almost has become something that even my brain cannot manage anymore, because when I started the first time to approach the Mulsanne King at 360, 370, said I was always late, and I have discovered that I had to technically turn the car 1 second before than my instinct would have said, because running at 100 meters each second doesn't leave you time to react properly in real time. You are always late. Too early. Sorry, I was watching the tab graphic, the data on the left side while braking. I was curious to see if there was any overheating attitude with brakes. So yes, if there was a special definition for this era, this decade of Le Mans, was for sure high speeds never reached unless you were at Indianapolis. Reliability for engines, mechanical parts in general, brakes. Fuel consumption. Crazy engines, maybe the most advanced part in a race car back then, on a prototype especially. Maybe all the rest of the car was not so evolved like engines were. Aerodynamics played an important role much earlier than in Formula 1 here. So we did it, from last to first, with the best car obviously available. And so we can at least finish the race also with the others. So a fake win, let's say, with the best car was just not like the Ferrari 250 GTO. Almost an easy win at amateur level, so maybe in the next historic episode we will try a higher level of difficulty. Was anyway another Porsche 917 Longtail arriving second, even if I've seen a sort of bug at the start-finish line in some laps. Cars tend to almost stop at the pit. Then a lot of Fords Mark IV up to P6, in between Parks Scarfiotti, Mike Parks, Ludovico Scarfiotti, with a Ferrari 330 P4, then Porsche Ferrari, the first 908 Longtail with a smaller engine, Ferrari 412, Ford Mark IV, and so on. And yes, at the end we have the GTs with some retirements, Jochen Rindt and Brian Redman with the Porsche 917 and 907, and a Renault Alpine with the engine broken. That's it. So another episode giving you a bit of history about this beautiful race arrived at its 100th edition. See you there on iKeysRacing for the next appointment into something about motorsport. Thank you for watching. I hope you will find some informations useful, maybe teasing a bit your curiosity, because sometimes motorsport has really something special within its history, and will be more than great maybe one day to hope to be a sort of inspiration for you, like I've been inspired by myself watching someone else work, attitude, effort on bringing on a YouTube community something not known, not seen before. So we close this particular second era, where then we will see in the 70s especially a real 4 hours driven simulating 6 times more 24 hours. It's my annual challenge. And then we will go on and on to discover some others particular periods of this motorsport beautiful environment that has more shades, more meanings behind than pure formula type of races. That's it. So stay very well. See you very soon on iKeysRacing channel community. Ciao from Monza, from Marco, and from the virtual LeMans, and from the original end of the 60s LeMans layout. Ciao. See you very soon. Bye.